Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Talk Anime News with the Ohio Guys. I'm your weekly host, Jared, along with my co-host, Christian.
Yo, what's up?
And we've got our semi-regular guest, Crane, here.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
And we've also got a couple special guests this week. We've got an Average Aspie and Tauro Awesome.
Yo, how is
Howdy.
everybody?
Alright guys, well we got some big news that just dropped tonight. Funimation is selling out to Sony.
Who would have thunk? We already saw this beforehand.
Well,
Right, there's already been hints of this months ago.
True.
Bloomberg had reported on that back in May, that Sony had weighed options on either buying them or not buying them. We hadn't really heard anything until tonight.
I hate to reiterate it, but obviously, obviously this thing was going to happen because big companies like Sony and the other companies that were talking about getting Funimation, they wouldn't mention about having an interest for Sony if they weren't going to bother getting them in the first place, or wouldn't bother going waist deep in there anyway. I don't know if I'm saying it right though, but it's just, yeah, they already said it aloud that, oh, they're interested. Then obviously they were probably already deep in doing an agreement of some sort, or
Oh yeah,
doing a whole bidding process. Who knows?
they're clearly already trying to work out all the details on the purchase at that point. But what the exact articles say here, Sony Pictures Television Networks announced on Monday that it'll acquire the majority stake in Funimation Entertainment. The agreement, which values the company at about 150 million US, will still have to go through regulatory approvals and other conditions for closing, which I assume those are going to happen. I can't see any way that they wouldn't. But the Funimation CEO, again Fukunaga, will retain his position for now. Who knows if that might change in the near future, but for stability's sake, it makes sense for him to stay there. But they're going to be purchasing 95% of the company, so they're going to clearly have a majority stake in it. And it's going to be purchased at about 143 million US.
shit.
Yeah.
Well, let me throw my 2 cents here for Mr. Gan Fukunaga. I think, if he does his position, there's not really much, problems for him because he's been doing this since like the 90s. And I'm pretty sure he could just probably retire at this point. I mean, most like CEOs and presidents would do that. Like, when they sell themselves out, just go to early retirement.
Right. I'm sure he's going to be making the most money off of this, obviously, but
Yeah. I
it's
mean, I probably would do this too if I was him. Like, yeah, it's time for me to retire. No more work.
He already had a long enough retirement trying to work on a conglomerate, like making a Christian studio where a dumbass former senator got to be working on it. Illuminate Studios, was it called?
maybe.
Not sure.
But yeah, Jen Fukunaga was working on other things, and he's probably still going to continue to be working on other things and stuff instead of being a CEO. Usually
Maybe.
it's the COO that's doing all the work now this time.
Right.
Well, I think since Jeff Fukunaga, to me, he seems like he's one of those old school type of Japanese businessmen. Like they retire until they're like in their 80s or 90s, like just never stopping. That's the vibe I get from him. Like no matter what kind of work he's in, he's going to still be active. That's just my observation.
Right. Also, Funimation, they have on their page some different facts that I'm assuming people have been flooding in questions about that they put on there. Questions like that are, will the Funimation team change? And their reply was, currently our plan is for Funimation to operate as it has to date. Gen will remain CEO, and the team will continue to deliver the best anime experiences we can to you.
But the thing I don't currently.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, that makes complete sense, like we just said, for stability reasons. You don't
Yeah.
immediately want to oust all these people. You want to keep them in there for a little while at least.
But it
Yeah.
already just shows that there's going to be a staff change or possible staff changes there. Hell, the Universal deal that they had, that was just a partnership, not really an owning of another company.
Then that was
had,
just for distribution too.
Yeah, distribution and staff changes. Some staff at Funny got kicked out or some got into certain power. That's what you can see in the Glassdoor reviews as well that mention that.
Right.
I mean, like,
So-
honestly, can there really be, like, with a buyout this big, it would be, like, honestly, very, very shocking if there wasn't any staff changes. I mean, like, it's not even for, I'd say for most companies, it's pretty much to be expected when you have buyouts this big.
Well, for like anime, like what Funimation has been doing, like I think it's more preferable to like keep the people who already know what they're doing, like who are familiar with like the whole anime as a whole, than just like grab people from like like Sony who probably just busy with like the movies, like live action stuff, and then try to make them like like go and do anime. Like that's gonna be a hard immediate transition to someone like that in this, because let's face it, live action movies, like what Hollywood produces, it's a different animal compared to anime, because that's something completely different. It has to be treated differently. It's it's nothing that makes the business more trickier, because you're trying to juggle something that's not the same as something else.
Right, and Hollywood doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to anime adaptations into live action movies.
Well, if you really want to get down
That's
to
definitely
Hollywood,
true.
the problem is that they don't want to just target the anime audience and community. They want to try and target the whole mainstream. But the problem is that the anime community and the mainstream media are very different in terms of tastes and what they view as what is good and bad. And when they try to go down the middle, nobody's happy most of the time.
Well, it's kind of funny because both like Hollywood movies and anime is like a different language, like both literally and figuratively speaking. And yeah, the whole middle ground, like yeah, there's going to be some miscommunication, which like this, could probably be like a bump in the road down the future with this sell out.
Well, for example, that new Ghost in the Shell movie, it really didn't pan out well. It's
At
like,
least
yeah,
not
they
here in
did-
the U.S. I think overseas it did better.
True. It did do decent overseas, but here it bombed.
Yeah,
But-
well, for how much money they put into it, it definitely did bomb here in the States.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
I'd say, but back to the deal with Sony and Funimation. I would say most likely distribution won't change too much because of the side deal with Universal. And then after streaming, that could get a little tricky because Funimation already has a side deal, a really big partnership with Crunchyroll. But if Sony already has their streaming sites and everything, how does that deal work out with Crunchyroll? That I think is really where it's going to be the bigger question.
In the immediate future, obviously everything's going to stay the same.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
immediate
and I don't
future,
know
but-
how long the partnership is between Funimation and Crunchyroll. I guarantee you there's some sort of contract signed with that for X amount of years or so. So until that contract runs out, then you could see a change. But until that happens, obviously this partnership will continue.
What
Oh, yeah,
what
no
I'm
doubt.
interested in, what I'm interested in is wondering if maybe Sony will make their own streaming service, like with the Funimation titles. I mean, like it would be kind of a stretch, but honestly, with a bunch of new streaming services popping out, it feels like everyone who wants to get skin in their game. And when
Well,
yeah.
actually, Tower, they do. They actually do have an Animax network that they use, which is like some channel for like 23 countries, including Japan, and also Crackle to use for it too. So maybe certain titles from Funimation would probably be like, supposedly they're going to have to renegotiate contracts with the Japanese to allow the streaming service for the shows to be streamed over onto their stuff, like Kid Station and Animax and maybe Crackle.
That wouldn't be surprising if they, if a Funimation title started showing up on it. But I'm really not sure. It's a pretty uncertain future of what this is going to entail. I'm interested in the quality of releases and like if Sony's going to do anything to Funimation's release program. I mean,
yeah. Well,
for the time being, again, they're going to be staying the same health. Funimation just announced their new kind of template idea for future limited edition box sets and stuff. So obviously that's going to probably stay in effect. And I don't think with the Sony PR talking, and also again talking about Sony's streaming stuff, this feels like something that's going to be affecting specifically streaming, I believe, more than it's going to be in physical distribution, because the whole thing, of course, with Universal, that whole distribution deal. So I think this whole majority stake being taken is just for the catalogs from Funimation to be brought over to the Sony network and stuff under like Sony Pictures, because like you were mentioning the whole stuff about the Ghost in the Shell movies and all the stuff with the anime stuff. Mostly that stuff would be focused around Sony films and stuff. Not this is about Sony Pictures though.
Right, but it would also allow them to have the rights to those shows to create the movies. Well,
they could probably
They-
ask to take the full rights from them too, since
right,
they do
they don't have
like
the full, like Funimation obviously doesn't have the full rights. They have like distributions for the shows. They don't actually own the shows. So
Mhm.
when it comes down to that, they really couldn't make a movie about it unless it came like from Sony Pictures, like an original anime from that they already own, and they could just do that on their own anyways. So like they couldn't go out and be like, "Oh, we're going to make a Dragon Ball Z movie, or we're
Well-
going to go make like a My Hero Academia movie or something like that." They couldn't go out and do that.
Well, that would be under Sony Films and stuff
Right.
themselves, like the ones that are doing the shitty emoji movie. Sony Pictures, on the other hand, I'm not really sure. This seems to be the digital side, or maybe possible television side of things instead of just films. So,
Yeah, it definitely seems more television based.
Oh, Jay, guys, Moncoreal just posted something about the acquisition.
Oh,
Oh,
what does
yeah?
she have to say?
I'll read it to you guys. Here we go. I'm sure you heard by now, but if not, there's the info and a great FAQ. I know the fans are worried, but I honestly think this will be a good thing. Funimation has always tried to put you guys first, and I can't imagine they stop now. We love you guys. And she put an emoji face next to it. Yeah. I read. I was reading it in her voice.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure they know very little about this acquisition. I'm sure they know maybe just a little bit more than we do, but
people like Mike McFarlane. Mike
Right.
McFarlane would probably know about this.
oh, if anybody would know, he's the one who would know like more specific details. I feel like your
Mhm.
average writer or voice actor most of the time is going to be left pretty much in the dark for this to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
I say Justin Cook might have a pretty good idea on it too, because he's like their
of
main
course,
producer.
Oh yeah,
Cook.
he would.
he would probably know more than even Mike McFarlane then, if we go by the pecking order.
Right, yeah, he's definitely higher up there.
But yeah, I'd say really the biggest change will be probably the staffing. And as for, I don't know how that entire process will work, but way I see it, for the good, the bad, and the ugly, there is Sentai Filmworks in Houston if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not saying it's completely bad or any of that, but that's why it's always good to have more than one anime company in the area, because just in case if something bad happens to one, you can run to the other and still have a chance of continuing your craft.
Right, and I have
Yeah,
a
that's
hard
what
time seeing Sony shutting down Funimation Studios there and like moving it to say California or something. I just honestly
Yeah.
don't see that happening. They're just too established
No.
there.
Yeah, and if they did that, the fan community would turn on Sony instant. No doubt
And
about it.
yeah, the Q&A thing about it says the same thing. Like, what does this mean for your products and services? They said that they have no plans, or like they're just saying that we'll be keeping our production facilities in Texas. I was looking at the wrong question. I'm sorry. Keeping their production facilities in Texas. Though Christopher R. Sabat has his Okatatron like 5000 studio, and supposedly Sony Straight is going to be making a new studio as well.
He has a
So-
studio actually now.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
But with that, like I just don't see it unless if Sony will then like give Funimation like the option to use Sony studios. If Sony even uses any studios, like in-house studios themselves, then that's probably more bang for their buck for them, or more
Mhm.
opportunities for more casting and stuff.
Yeah, I could see that, or them outsourcing to like Bang Zoom down the road potentially for certain
True.
shows. Like I could see them still doing the majority of their shows in Dallas, but I could also start seeing more of their shows being done at like Bang Zoom as well to keep up with demand.
Well, Sentai does it too with, for example, the Fate series. It's like not all of them, but some of them, even though Sentai technically licenses the shows, they still have Bang Zoom do the work on it.
And possibly Squid Girl might get outsourced. I don't know if Squid Girl was dubbed in Bang Zoom. I think it was New York. I'm not sure though.
I don't remember.
So yeah, there's a possibility that Sentai will also still keep outsourcing the stuff if they license older titles that did have dubs in the past. Though, if it's going to be like an unpopular one like Higurashi that sold poorly, then they'll either just keep it sub only, or if it depends on the plot for it, like Prism Ilia, then they're just gonna dub it themselves.
Right. Before we get too much further in this as well, I also want to throw in there that this has nothing to do with Aniplex. If anybody
No.
was
Exactly.
wondering that.
Yeah, according to Big on Anime on Twitter, and even myself too. Like, I read about like Aniplex being owned by Sony Music and stuff, and the music division of Sony is also owned by Sony Pictures themselves. So it's within a division of another division that owns Aniplex. So they are pretty much separate from each other. Like, they are not going to be like a bunch of angry piranhas like in a fish tank or something together.
Right. It's nothing like that. It's not like they're going to merge Aniplex and Funimation together. I don't see that happening at all.
That would make for some interesting releases down the line. Take like the you take Aniplex, which way overcharges, and Funimation, which has a pretty low quality. So I think you'd either have a pretty good combination and make them more middle of the line releases, or you get super expensive releases with the lowest quality. That'd be funny. Anyway.
Well, the problem is that if they go the Aniplex road and charge ridiculous prices, fans are going to pay. A lot of fans will not pay for it, and they will find their ways of watching anime legally or illegally. So
they just probably won't buy it, and they'll just stick to their Crunchyroll subscription, because what's the point of a Funimation one when all the shit's mostly on Crunchyroll?
Exactly. I can also see this where Sony pumps more money into Funimation to allow them to purchase more titles as well, become more of a heavy hitter.
That's true.
Kind of like what it seems like has happened with Sentai and Amazon. I don't know if Amazon is giving them money or helping them purchase titles, or don't know any specifics behind that whatsoever.
Yeah,
but they've been
really
picking
confusing.
up some pretty big titles lately.
Yeah,
I mean, not
like
that they
Squid
haven't
Girl
been
and
some big
Sakamoto.
ones before, but like they've really hit it hard the last 2 seasons.
Just recently made an Abyss.
Yes.
One of them.
And
Yeah.
maybe this is probably what it could be all about too, is Funimation may acknowledge that they can't take on Amazon by themselves. They need more help. So maybe
they're just
this
going to sell their soul like a prostitute over to Sony then?
That's not really asking for help. That's giving up.
Yeah, that's
Well-
basically what it feels like when you give like 90% of your stock.
Oh no, that is
over
what it
to
is. Like
Sony.
that's just saying you're done with it, essentially.
That could be. But you
Like-
never know. Business goes in some of the weirdest ways. It's like, who would have guessed like 2 years ago we would say, oh yeah, Funimation's selling like 95% of their stakes to Sony, you know?
Mhm.
I mean,
It's
2
like
years
people
ago,
would-
I think I still would have believed it.
And 2 years ago, people were like, never mind. Brain farted. Shit.
You're fine.
Yep.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, I still would have believed it, because that's right when they were getting into like simuldubs and stuff like that, or that's right when they were starting to get really big with.
But
it.
you know what I'm saying though, but the majority of the anime community would still look at us like, yeah, you're crazy, get out, you know?
Yep.
Well, that's
And people were
'cause-
still finding the first article about like Sony being interested, and they were like saying, just get out. There's no way Sony's gonna.
Good lord, Tower.
Did a Funimation fanboy just come and hack
I think they are. All right, I'm gonna.
Tower, your thing is dying.
I'm gonna mute him for now until he gets that up and running. If one of you guys wants to let me know when he does.
Yep.
Anyways, lost my train of thought there. Anyways, yeah, like I could see that them saying, well, we can't really compete with Amazon and Sentai teaming up for some stuff. And I could see them being like, well, we need to get out. But obviously, it seemed like this deal was already in the works before Sentai and Amazon really had announced a lot of stuff. Because
True.
the last reports of this were back in May. So, and
But
when did Strike launch their deal with Sentai? Was it back in March?
I think it was
January. Well,
about
January.
not a
no.
partnership. Anime Strike started in January, but then when Anime Strike, like after the Cabaneri, started doing some more titles, then there was this whole thing with Sentai like getting titles and stuff
Right.
alongside them, which was weird.
But I would say another thing that a lot of people are not bringing up is if they combine with Sony, how would that affect the lineup with Toonami, for example? If there's a lot more money going around.
Well, Toonami just did a tweet about it, so I think it might not affect anything much. Like Toonami will still take stuff from Funny, or maybe it might be labeled under Sony. Who knows?
Because I'd say the majority of the shows that are really, at least the main headliners for now, are California titles. That's like besides
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they
Dragon
just
Ball
what?
Super though, that's under Toei though, so I don't think
Yeah.
Sony can even get that one because
Okay.
Funimation is the distributor and just the recording studio for it. Like they don't really have any merchandise to go around for it, so
All right.
yeah, Sony will have to argue with Toei about it instead of Funimation.
Exactly.
True. But no, it's just there's a lot more at stake than what most people anticipate.
Yeah,
'Cause-
though people like Glass Reflection are like, we need more info and stuff. Even
Well, yeah,
though
there's not a lot of info out there. I mean,
Mhm.
this literally just dropped like a couple hours ago
Mhm.
at the soonest. I mean,
Still,
most
that doesn't
of the
mean,
articles
like,
are
you can't
labeled like
just
today,
think.
August 1st.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't speculate or just.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what we're doing right now.
True. But nah, this is crazy.
No, like it is crazy. It's always crazy when something like this happens to a
So
company that's been pretty much synonymous with anime for the last 2 decades now, almost.
Yeah, but I'd say the most interesting part is, did they really think that the traffic would slow down overnight with us? You know, it's like
What do you mean?
when they released the news, they probably wanted to wait for responses and stuff by morning. It's like, no, I believe most anime fans are night owls.
Pretty much. I'm also curious to see what a lot of other voice actors from Funimation have to say about this too. I'd really like to see more of their opinions. I'm sure we'll see that in the next couple days.
But yeah, heck, we'll be going to a con this coming weekend, so hell, we'll get some interesting news, most likely.
Right, you'll have to ask Greg about it
Mm-hmm.
because I'd like to hear his opinion.
True.
Has Tower gotten his stuff figured out yet?
Um. Yep.
Cool. Sorry to keep you
Anyway.
muted there for a second, Tower. You're
No, you're fine.
Oh,
um,
someone
guys-
on the forums, on the Anime News Network forums, is mentioning the idea that maybe that Funimation like gave the money over to Sony and for Sony to try to do something worldwide with it or whatever. Like
Technically, they could.
Mhm. But again, they're not mentioning anything about the physical stuff. It just seems as a digital thing.
yeah,
more
that's
than-
what it honestly feels like. Is it's more about their digital library and their digital streaming services than anything.
Yeah, and it's
physical.
pretty ironic because like after the whole Crunchyroll and Funimation thing, mostly Funimation is all about just the dubs, and that's kind of it.
Well, that
Stuff,
was a big
like-
part of their deal. I'm
Mhm.
sure that helped with their costs as well and the timing of being able to put content out, not having to worry about doing subtitles at all. That was all left up to Crunchyroll, so they only had to focus on dubs.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest thing that stood out to me when they first announced their partnership.
But even then, there's still some actors around that still keep mentioning about like still buying the physical copy is a little bit more important than all the streaming capabilities or all the options that you have streaming wise and stuff.
Well, yeah, when it comes down to it, I mean, the margin compared to subscribing to a streaming service or buying a physical copy of the content is going to be way higher for the physical content. You're going to be making a lot more money from that. But with
Either
how
way.
technology's advancing and everybody wants everything like now, uh, a lot of companies, I guarantee, are just feeling forced into the streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Yeah,
Cunnington Beer had something to say.
Oh, what's she have to say?
Onward and upward Funimation, with the Sony Pictures article attached to it. That's all she said.
Right.
Onward and upward.
Interesting.
Funimation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just going through
actually
ANN
is,
forums right now. Just some interesting posts here. Somebody mentioned hopefully this is an arrangement like between Disney had with Pixar or Marvel, where Sony owns Funimation and continues to let them do things their way. Which I'd say with Pixar that Disney allows them to do most things their way still, but obviously not with Marvel. Disney had a clear vision what they want to do there. So
Yeah.
I think that's a poor description.
it
to
varies from
use.
company to company, and so far, Funimation, according to some articles, is it's just going to be treated as a subsidiary under Sony and stuff.
Right.
Kind of like with AT&T having a subsidiary that owns Crunchyroll as a subsidiary. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm really
Subsidiary.
subsidiary
There we go.
to Crunchyroll.
Yep.
And then that being owned by a subsidiary of AT&T.
Right. And it could just be something like that, but I don't know. I'd have a hard time imagining that Sony just wanted to own them because I don't know if the profits are that
Yeah, I
great
feel
at
like this is more like
Funimation.
Funimation going up to them and like accepting it or something like that because they were kind of like having issues. And according to what like Michael said about like Greg Ayers at one panel mentioning that the simuldubs isn't really doing that much like money wise and stuff. It's a very fast process with very risky reward and stuff.
Right. And we worked out the numbers one night the best that we could. And I believe the best that their profits could be right now is like 20 to 30 million.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Despite them having the gross earnings of 100 million according to the COO.
Right.
Which mm-hmm.
And that was without us even knowing the exact costs of what it is to run a streaming service or anything like that. We weren't even throwing cost in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guarantee you that's not exactly cheap, obviously, because you have to run servers for it and you have to have the technical staff to run it too.
Yeah, there's a lot to maintain, and usually some streaming companies would not try to improve their servers that much because that's a lot more money and resources into upgrading for a risky reward. In that, like, you might not get a good enough server, or might not get enough viewers overall, or worse, you might actually have problems with your servers after you upgrade.
Well, look at Crunchyroll; they've kept their pretty much their same service for. Since they
So now they
started,
just recently got some
essentially.
new engineers though, because like the subsidiary that is owned by that AT&T owns, they fired like some people off their engineering. So then they just hired some new ones that were on the cheap.
Right.
But
So yeah, they might be using the same servers in some area, but they're having different engineers working on them.
Right, and
But
that's
I
where Sony can come in with this. Sorry to cut you off there, Crane. But
Yeah.
sorry, that's where Sony can come in here and funnel more money into a streaming service if they see that it can be profitable.
True, but it really, when it comes right down to it, when it comes down, if the fans really care about supporting the company, the biggest way to support them is buy the box sets, buy the merchandise. That's where it really goes.
Well, it's hard to do that with Funimation too because it takes them so long to put their box sets out now.
That's true.
And I'm saying like after their simuldubs come out, it's still been like 2 to 3 years before a
And
box
worst
set
comes
for
to
the
worst, the
shows come
quality
out.
of the box sets that they have.
That too, they've had all kinds of issues with their box sets over the
Look at
last 5 to
Gyoka, like
6
that
years.
big ass
Oh.
title that they just got from the Kadokawa deal, and that was just a lame ass release and stuff. And now we're getting like limited edition sets that are kind of going to be looking plain or more like repetitive and stuff with their
Right.
new like template idea for art boxes.
And way I see it, that's their choice, that's their business, and if they want to go with that, if they feel that's
And
the
I
right
think
choice, hey, that's their thing. But they should realize that,
here's another idea.
So it
I think I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. Am I interrupting?
a little bit. But no, what were you gonna say?
no, you're fine.
Well, I would say though, if that's their choice, okay, but they should also realize that they also have competition that's probably doing better, if not just as good, and possibly cheaper. You know, it's like they should also keep that in mind when they make these decisions. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, go ahead, guys.
So I
Yeah.
can. Oh, sorry. No,
Yeah.
you go first.
Okay, because now I'm thinking like, with Sony Pictures just buying this as a subsidiary to try to tackle like the anime content, to try to like work with maybe getting some of Funimation's catalog over to Animax or Crackle and stuff. It just
Mhm.
seems like I feel that maybe Sony would probably just let Funimation do their thing mostly and stuff, like try not to touch them as much. Though maybe some of the funding or the profits will go straight over to Sony instead of Funimation, where like maybe it'll be like a whole like Mitt Romney scenario where they're just gonna take control of the company and just suck them dry and leave them out for dead.
They could do that as well.
That would be that. Oh,
Oh no, go ahead. You first.
okay. That would be interesting. I could also see it happening as maybe Funimation gets subsidized by Sony. I don't know. I feel like it's really hard to make the call right now. I don't know. Maybe Sony did it like a predatory buyout, but I do think that maybe that they're still waiting to decide for themselves, because honestly, this could go really well. Like I feel like both companies could really profit off of the buyout from this, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like it's too early really to tell that how it's going to go down. But it definitely could be something.
Hello.
Yeah, you speak of predatory buyouts, and Navari Corporation buying Funimation at 2005 seemed a little predatory, and also it was during a time when probably Funimation needed the money because 2005 was like roughly when the bubble was almost about to burst and stuff, which is why, despite Navari probably treating them pretty bad, they were able to survive like the whole anime bubble in 2005 through 6 and 7, I think, or maybe it was 2003 when it started, but.
Because the bubble burst in 2008, so.
But I wonder if this was also a thing, a buyout where Funimation really needed the money and stuff, because that whole issue that we mentioned that maybe they're not getting enough profits or something like that, because either the conglomerate that Gen Fukunaga was trying to do, I don't know if I pronounce his name, but
That's how I
or
pronounced it. So
or maybe the
Yeah, I think
Crunchyroll
it's right.
Funimation deal is not doing so hot for them.
That
Mostly
would
just because
be
that they're trying to work on simuldubs most of the time now.
well, I think
that
more or less the deal with Crunchyroll was just to allow them not to have to deal with subtitles.
Yeah,
That's
and I
honestly
feel
what
like
it
that
felt
was
like.
something that Crunchyroll made instead,
Right.
or like decided on in the first place, because Funimation just basically crawled back to them after 2003, where they thought they were the hot shit in town.
Well, yeah, there
that
was
would
those
be
couple years from what was it? I want to say 2000 what 14 to 2000 till just last year 2016, where Funimation wasn't like allowing any of their titles to be streamed on there because of their streaming service, and it seemed like it hurt both companies overall.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
it would be I could imagine that Funimation would be open to something like this, because also like they're like sets, like their physical releases have honestly been going recently, and I wonder if this buyout could increase the quality of those, because that's really what I'm in it for, or what I'm really more interested in. I'm not really as into the streaming thing. I feel like this is going to have the biggest effect on streaming, but as someone who's really more into physical releases, that's what I'm interested in, is the quality of those.
Well, they did
Yep.
recently announce their new style of limited editions. There's what limited, and then what I forget what they called it, but there's like
There's the regular editions, and then there's the box editions, where like the boxes are going to be a lot slimmer for spaces,
yeah.
and also the amount of cases that'll be in the box. If it's a season, a single season show, then it's going to be like in a single case, or even if it's a 2-core show, then it might be in a single case, but there's going to be room for like an art book or maybe some other goodies. But it basically just like cuts all hope of ever having soundtracks in their sets compared to Sentai.
Right. And it's from the set that I looked at that they're going to be doing it to. It looks very similar to what Sentai's done with theirs, just like a peg lower.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure
And
that's why
also-
they're doing
oh,
it
sorry.
as well. Honestly, to try to compete with Sentai's limited releases.
Mm-hmm. Though, Tower, you were mentioning about like maybe Funimation like needing the money and that sort of thing, but if we go by like the gross earnings that they do, like a $100 million, and then the whole theory that their net profit is like 20 million and stuff, then the amount of money that they're getting from the Sony buyout is mostly just gonna help them for only just a year. So I don't really know how it's gonna be funded properly within Funimation, unless if the majority of it's gonna go straight to Fukunaga's pockets.
Very well
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, that's
I
definitely
don't
true.
know
It could.
what his stake in the company was.
I think I do think that this is definitely very interesting because I think this is probably like definitely maybe more of a shift to Sentai, like or like I feel like after this Sentai could probably become more of an even bigger competitor for them because honestly
Yeah, bigger
Sentai's been
private
getting-
company.
Yeah,
since they're
because,
probably
like,
the only private ones around now.
Pretty
Yeah,
much,
'cause,
yeah.
like, Yeah, because because Sentai recently has just been getting a lot bigger, getting a lot more fancy titles, especially with their partnership. And I feel like maybe pretty soon Funimation won't be the big guy on the block anymore, and Sentai will take them over as the big anime company. I'd appreciate that because I mean I'm not sure, but like I definitely prefer Sentai's releases and Sentai's dealing, streaming, and stuff to Funimation's.
Oh yeah, I think that's a pretty general consensus around most of us.
Like I want to agree with you on the whole thing that maybe they would probably be the bigger person on the block, but they're kind of a private company and they're only just dealing with partnerships now, like unlike with Crunchyroll and Funimation, which are now subsidiaries of other companies now due to them either being bought up or being managed differently. So I can't see them like probably being better than Funimation like anytime soon though, but it's a possibility that I did dream about, but reality comes and kicks you in the balls.
Right. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting here in the next couple years because that's when you'll really see what Sony has planned for Funimation.
Yeah, just like with the whole changes for Anime Strike that people are hoping for, I'd say wait until like the year for stuff to see if they'll change stuff, just like with Funimation to see what stuff will change within the coming year or maybe just next year.
Right. And I would guess it's probably at minimum a year away from any major changes. I would, if I were to guess, I would say probably, 3 to 5 years down the road before you'll see anything. Maybe 2 years. But Sony will obviously have to wait for all these other deals that Funimation has made to run out before they can make any huge changes or do some sort of a buyout of those deals.
If the Universal deal took it pretty quick to the point where if you look at the Glassdoor reviews and stuff mentioning about Universal changing stuff during that whole partnership, then it might happen a little bit more sooner than we think, though.
That's true.
Especially for one, again, where they own 95% of the company.
I'm curious where that other 5% is.
Exactly.
I'm actually really
private
curious about
stockholder?
that to see if somebody just didn't want to sell out and wanted to keep
Maybe
their
Mike
small
McFarlane
stake.
has a part of the
I'd
shares.
imagine
No.
I'd imagine that the 5% is made up of mostly private stockholders.
Nope.
Honestly,
Actually, they said the 5% is actually Fukunaga.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Oh man, it's just
I didn't see
freaking
that.
Really? Where? Like, was that just in a
Wait,
brief message?
really? It's like that'd be hilarious.
That just makes Fukunaga even greedier. Like,
Oh yeah, it
jeez.
definitely does.
Yeah, this is Funimation CEO. Again, Fukunaga will retain his position and a minority stake.
Oh yeah, I see that and retain a minority.
Oh yeah, he
stake
does
in
have the
the
minority
company.
stake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Minority.
yeah, probably that 5% is his.
I mean, it can't. I mean, like, do you really think the entire 5% is his? I mean,
Like
Huh.
really 5? Like
I could
really
see
not
the
even
entire
1% to like
5%.
other people?
Maybe
Yeah.
1% is other people, and he owns 4%. But it wouldn't surprise me if he owns that entire 5%.
jeez. Like,
Because with how big Justin Cook
wait,
and
is Funimation a
Mike
publicly
are, I feel
traded
like they would
company?
have a part of the shares.
Wait, is Funimation a publicly traded company or not? Like, I don't know. Or,
I think it is.
When you're selling stock like that, it kind of is a public
Yeah.
thing.
yeah.
So you should be able to see who does own all the different
Yeah.
percentages of stock in it. But yeah, like you
Mhm.
said there, Brad.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could definitely see like Mike or Justin or somebody like that also having small minority stakes in the company as well. But they
Yeah.
also might have sold them to Sony just to get rid of them,
Mm-hmm.
That's possible.
just to get out.
Unless they got part of the 5% that's left.
Well, what it was, welcome, Mike.
um,
What it is like in the article here, it says that Gen is retaining a minority stake in the company. So I was guessing that the 5% that's left over is probably mostly
Must be
his.
his.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I assumed. That way, if he wants to, and the companies make or say the company doubles its profits or doubles its net worth here, he could easily sell that 5% and make out like a bandit.
Well, have you guys talked about like maybe he's possibly trying to do like he did with the Navarre Corporation, where he sold it to them for quite a bit of money and then bought it back for next to nothing?
We actually didn't touch on that.
That is possible.
Isn't that what you were talking about earlier there, Brad?
Huh?
Is that they sold it to the Navarre Corporation for about the same amount of money, and then he was able to buy it back for like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, 23 mil, I believe.
And they sold it. The original sell for the Navarre Corporation back then was like 140 some million or something.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, and he bought it back for pennies on the dollar in, what was it, 2008 or 2009?
I'd
I believe
say
2009.
Okay.
I honestly think that before that happens, probably like gut the company out. Honestly, I don't think that Sony would.
Oh yeah, I
get
don't.
on. Sony wouldn't jump on like a venture like that. They would gut the company.
Oh yeah, I don't think Sony would sell it back for pennies on the dollar. I think Sony would probably just gut it completely and
Yeah.
just be like, let it die, because Sony's the type of company that would be like, we don't want to admit we failed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
would try to
true.
make any money back that they could, selling rights
Yeah.
to shows, that sort of a thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they could do that. Like they could just let the company die and then sell off the catalog.
That would be actually really. I wonder if any of like the. I wonder if any of the streaming rights or any of the rights of the newer shows would be tossed up in the air. Like I wonder how this is gonna affect the Japanese and their sellings.
Well, I mean, their current contracts probably won't be affected. I mean,
That's what
you
I
know,
said earlier.
technically, if Sony, even if Sony does have the 95% majority, their current contracts would still be, active. Now, there is a point when it comes to contract law, though, that after a certain amount of time has passed, the majority holder can actually negate that contract without any penalty. But usually it's at least 6 months, usually in up to like a couple years. Actually, there's been times where it's up to 10 years.
Well,
And
yeah,
honestly-
I touched on that earlier, Mike. I said we won't see any major changes into this, probably a minimum of 1 year.
I don't know if it'll take that long.
It
I would
depends,
say
but-
you might see minor changes within 6 months.
Yeah, some minor changes, like some staffing
Yeah.
changes I could see in 6
Yeah,
months.
yeah,
But
yeah.
any major changes, I can't see happening in at least a year.
I could see Sony coming in and getting rid of some of the like the higher up staff.
Right. I don't think that they'll mess with, like, obviously lower down the tier.
I don't think they'll
actors,
mess with, like,
obviously, or
yeah.
directors or anything like that. They're not gonna be like, well, we're not gonna work with this person. Clearly.
Well, I mean, for now they may not. But I mean, Sony is the type of company that is probably going to try to do things on the cheap, or at least as cheap as they can to get more profit. So they may down the road decide to just hire all new people because they can pay them less because Texas is a right to work state.
Right. I could see that. Or I also mentioned earlier I could see them picking up more and more shows too because they can funnel more money into it and start to keep up with the demand, start outsourcing it to California too.
They could. Did you guys touch on the fact that like they kind of already have, like, Sony already has like a hand in the California market, and that
Yep.
the Texas market they're moving into is quite different?
Yeah.
Didn't talk about differences, but
Well, 'cause, like, the biggest difference between the Texas and, I'm sorry to steer the conversation away from what you guys are probably talking about.
you're fine.
But
This is just a general discussion.
the biggest difference between the two markets is this: in California, Sony has to deal with a union, with the SAG union, the Actors Guild. Where with Texas, it's a right to work state, so they're going to be able to treat this completely differently from what they've treated in California. Which is another reason why I say that they probably will end up getting rid of a lot of the cast, like a lot of the people that work for Funimation, like even directors and voice actors eventually, because I'm sure they realize that they're in a state where they can be like, well, we can bring in new people and offer them $10 an hour less, and it's okay, it's legal, it's
Right.
100% legal.
Well, I could first of all, I could see them cutting ways with like higher ups for that reason. Like, there's no reason to pay them this amount of money when.
Well,
we
I mean,
don't
it's
have
not
to
like
now.
it's not like Sony can't send their own people in.
Exactly.
It's not like Sony can't be like, oh, well, this person's making $100,000 or 120 or whatever per year to be an administrator of Funimation. I don't know the exact titles, so we'll say administrator. And Sony be like, well, screw that. We can just bring in one of our people and be like, hey, you're doing this job now, and you're fired. Get out. And it's legal. I mean, in California, they wouldn't be able to do that because they have to deal with the union.
Right. And also a thought behind this too is like they don't need the people over there, like potentially need them over there that have been working with these different companies in Japan either, because Sony is Japan.
Exactly.
They've got their own people over there, so they don't
This
exactly need these people for their sources anymore, potentially.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the people who do like the bidding and stuff for like the
Yes.
shows and stuff for the companies.
Yes.
Yeah, they're probably going to get rid of them. If I was one of the people who is one of the negotiators for like contracts with the Japanese for like shows for Funimation, I would be firing up my resume at this point.
Oh yeah.
Because you are probably the first one to go.
Yeah. I wonder if actually a few of them could jump over to like maybe Sentai to a few other companies.
I'm sure they probably will. I mean,
I mean, it would be interesting if I wonder if other companies could start bidding harder, getting more.
What they'll probably do is if they do start like firing off the people who do the bidding and stuff for the shows and stuff like that, I guarantee a lot of them are going to be like, well, I need to find a job, so they'll jump ship to like Sentai or like Viz or something. Or even, like,
I could see a lot of people going back or going to California because that seems to be like the transition that most Funimation people take is that direction.
Doesn't always work.
Right, it doesn't always work, but
and then some of them have transitioned to Houston as well, and some of them have transitioned to New York for a lesser extent, because there is voicing in New York, but it's usually not anime based. It's usually more like commercial based and stuff like that. And usually those are the ones,
or even cartoons sometimes.
Yeah, and those are usually the people who were also the people that wanted to like pursue their like on stage acting career as well. So they head to New York and do like off Broadway shows.
Well, and that's where you could really hit up Houston. That's why Houston is somewhat more attractable, because
this is true.
It's not as far. They have another anime studio, and their theater scene is actually really picking up speed these days.
That's actually where they get 90% of their voice actors from, is from the theater scene.
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's not even a joke. Like most of the directors and people who work for Sentai will tell you that if you want to work at Sentai Filmworks, your most likely chance is to get involved in the theater scene in Houston and get to know people.
Yep, and it's kind of interesting that they even tell a lot of just be an actor, don't try and focus on voice acting,
But anyway, back to what we were back to Funimation. Does anyone else have another point to put in?
Well, I was just thinking, like, also to touch on a little bit of the topic we were just chatting about. Like, say they were to get rid of a director, like, I could easily see any one of the bigger directors from there going to Houston because Houston needs directors.
Well, Brad and I were talking about this earlier tonight when we first found out about it and stuff. We were talking about like the different directors from Funimation, like Mike McFarland or Colleen Clinkenbeard or oh my God,
Walker.
my brain. Yeah, Tyler Walker. My brain went out on me there for a minute and was just like, what?
Or even Zach Bolton, Chris Bevins.
Well, there's a bunch of them. Like, but there's a lot of directors from Funny that if they do end up getting shit canned because Sony's like, hey, we can bring in one of our people to do this and pay them less, it's not like they can't go to another company and get a job. Let's be honest at this point. Sentai Filmworks needs directors.
Oh,
yeah, they do.
The worst way.
Like that's not even a joke. Like everybody knows it. I mean, most of the people who work for Sentai say the same thing all the time. They're like, we need directors badly. And I can't see them turning down like Mike McFarland or Colleen Clinkenbeard or Zach Bolton or Tyler Walker or so on and so forth. And then some of the directors from Funimation don't even have to do that because, people like, Chris Sabat, for example.
He's got his own studio.
He's got his own company. I mean, Sonny Strait to a lesser extent because he just started his. So like maybe he would have to go work for somebody else for a little while. I don't know how well his company's doing. I know it's less than a year old.
It's like maybe 6 months old. It's really
it's less than
or
a
at
year
least
old.
His
so
studio. I don't know about his company in general, but his studio.
Well, he does.
Super
he
new.
does have the comic stuff too.
Right.
At least I think he's still doing that, right?
I
don't know.
Sure.
I think he does, but I'm not sure.
Assume so.
The voice actors, well, at least the veteran voice actors won't have a problem, probably. I mean, they will have
the newer ones would have a problem either, honestly, because they are probably getting paid less. Like,
yeah, well, they might get. Well, some of the new ones might get to stay, and some of them may not. You never know, Jared, because, like I said before, Texas is a right to work state, so Sony could literally be like, we're going to pay nothing.
right.
we're gonna pay them. We're gonna pay you $15 an hour to voice, and it's like even the new people are not getting paid that little.
Exactly.
And I don't think they would take that because you can't live on that. Better have two other jobs.
Not just
it's gonna
voicing,
be
no. Like,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out.
Oh yeah, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with this down the road. Because this is probably the first time something like this has happened to one of the bigger companies.
Well, no, not really.
Well,
I mean, you got to remember, they did get bought by Navarre in 4.
Right, but that wasn't like to this degree where anime is, like in pop culture.
No, it's true.
Anime has blown up since then.
Did you guys talk about the fact that the money that they sold for was almost the same amount?
Yeah, we touched on that.
That seems strange.
I mean, I don't know,
Well,
man. I also mentioned how we had talked about the guesstimate of profit that they've been making that we calculated out one evening too, which I would assume is pretty darn close.
Well, I mean, we did that with information from old returns because they are a publicly traded company,
Right.
But like we're probably within $1 million or $2 million, maybe
at,
5.
At the worst, 5 to 10 million off. And
yeah.
But I would that much.
I would say we're probably almost on the money at this point, though.
Oh, it definitely seems like, especially with them selling like this, like clearly that their profits like weren't increasing enough.
Well, this is the same thing. Like, and I mentioned this to Brad earlier tonight because maybe for the viewers listening home, they may not understand like exactly how this is going down a little bit, and like how drastic this is, that 95% of your company is just gone, you know, overnight. Like we that's insane. Like that's just, you don't sell that much, you know, like you just don't.
No, I'd say even if it's like 45, 49%, that's still crazy.
Well, I mean, like, take a look at like, for example, when Sears bought pretty much the majority share of Kmart.
Mm-hmm.
Even Sears only got like 55% of Kmart. That's all they got.
But that is still insane in the business world.
Yeah, it is. But you know, I mean, Kmart was you know, basically on the brink of, you know, being gone, destruction. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And Sears saved them, although Sears is circling the drain now too.
Yep.
But they only got like 55% of Sears at the point in time. I mean, of Kmart, and Kmart was circling the drain. So, like, 95%. That's a large margin.
You don't say.
Very large margin. It's actually such a large margin that I actually didn't think it was real.
It's essentially like startup companies selling out to like Amazon or something is what it feels like.
But that's different though, because the startup company's like, hey, what the hell? We'll cash in and make some money, right?
Yeah, this is different. This is a company that's been around for 20 years.
You know, it's an established brand.
Or 20 plus years now.
This is something like this would be more acceptable, like, for example, and I'm reaching at this point, but I'm trying to like explain how crazy this really is. This would be more acceptable if like someone bought 95% of like a dead company, for example, like fucking like ADV Films or Geneon or Bandai, so they could use the name.
Right. Well, yeah, because Funimation, whether you like them or not, that name is synonymous with anime.
Oh yeah, but it's an active company though.
Exactly.
Like,
and
that's what makes
one to a certain degree.
But that's what makes it so insane, is the fact that like this is something that a company like Sony would do to buy a dead company's name. You know, like ADV Films or Bandai or Geneon. Well, Bandai is a dead company. Well, no, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes.
But like, because that's still, even though they're not around anymore, it's still a established brand. You know. But to buy an active company, like, that's nuts.
100% agree.
Well, it could be. I mean, like,
maybe Funimation is on it. Maybe Funimation was farther downhill than like they had actually let on.
That could.
Oh no, it's so obvious that they were. This is when you sell 95% of your stock to one person.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I'm saying one person, but it's a company. But you know what I mean.
One company and one entity.
Yeah.
You're in pretty dire straits.
You are circling the drain.
Yeah, I knew that their stuff was dropping in quality, but I did not know that they were in that bad a shape. Honestly, like it's pretty surprising to me.
Apparently, their persona of being the top dog was apparently not true. Because when you have to sell 95% of your company to Sony, wow, that's pretty bad. It's like selling your firstborn son. Go with Sony, Timmy.
With brother.
I got the perfect meme for this.
Timmy will not be home for Christmas this year.
Oh man.
Oh.
I'm wondering how this could affect them. I wonder, like, if other companies are going to like start like maybe amping up their game. Like I feel like now that since Sony is a Japanese company linked into Japan, I feel like Funimation could get a lot more titles a lot easier.
Oh, that's something I mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, I feel like
you also have to remember though too that when it comes to the Japanese companies, it may actually be even harder for them to get titles, because Japanese companies that like you've burned bridges with, and I bet Sony has burned some bridges, don't exactly, they're not very forgiving.
No,
That's
they don't. They're not.
definitely true. Yeah.
Take a look at Nintendo, for God's sakes, with all the bridges they've burned, and like how quite a few of the Japanese companies are like, haha, we won't work with you. We'd rather work with Sony or Microsoft. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like with Sony and Nintendo.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it might be easier for them to get some titles from certain companies, and then it might not be easier for them to get titles from certain companies. It all depends if the companies that they can get titles from are the ones producing the animes that people actually want to watch.
That's true.
Because you never know anymore.
But
a
at
lot
the
of times,
I just don't think it'll work because this is the U.S. division and stuff, and
this is true. This is true. I will. Yeah, this is very
like
true.
Aniplex, like the Aniplex of America is like a division of the Japanese version, and they don't really get the say in like what titles they get, even if they're under
don't.
A1 Pictures. It's if Aniplex is part of the production committee.
The Japanese do not let them have any say, because the Japanese still live underneath that whole umbrella of we are Japanese and therefore know more about anime than you. You know, and I'm quoting Greg Ayres on that one, by the way.
Oh my
god. Which is bullshit at this point. Like that couldn't be farther from the truth. When you have an American company create a show like Ruby, and the Japanese had to import it to their country and dub it. that right there is the hello. We must know what we're doing because you fuckers actually came to us for a show. You know,
I mean, it's pretty like like you were saying, it is pretty much dates back for as long as anime has been brought over, and anime makers in Japan constantly ignore the Western audience. Like, it's honestly, it is interesting that like it's blown up as big as it has been, because like I feel like there's a lot of neglect of the Western audience, but I feel like it's harder to do now, especially that there's such a big Western market.
Well, I mean, you can also notice too that you know, they have done that in the past, but with newer shows, you can notice that they are starting to throw some of the Western influence into the shows, because they have realized that there is a market in the United States, or you know, England, you know, the Western markets in general, that there's money to be made. You know,
like I feel like I think like Tokyo Ghoul sold like had way more blue West than it did in Japan.
Well, it's not even just that. Like, think about the multiple times where the Japanese have had a show just bomb in Japan where it makes no money whatsoever.
Cowboy Bebop is like a famous example.
Ghost Stories is like
Ghost Stories.
Ghost Stories is whenever you want to talk about like the Japanese like saying, oh, we know everything about anime. Really? Ghost Stories, we're done. Like that is the go fuck yourself show, because like that show bombed so bad, and they brought it over to ADV Films. ADV Films fixed it, and then they made good money off that show, and they ended up winning Dub of the Year.
And it still is really
in a year where its competition was Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah,
and it won.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is that whenever we show newer fans the show, they're like, "What have I been missing? Why haven't I seen this?" You know,
they don't believe it's a fucking anime. Like, they don't believe it's real. They're like, "Oh, that's really funny. Who created it? Was it Team 4-Star? Was it Little Karibo?"
Yeah.
No, it's an actual anime, guys.
I wish more dub teams would do that. Honestly, like I feel like
they would love to.
Yeah, I just wish that there were more examples of that happening. But like it's
two almost happened.
Yeah, there were a couple shows that almost happened that way. But we can't talk about that.
Right. Not to cut you guys off, but try to get us back on topic here. Kind of veered off to the side there. I'm just curious to see like more voice actor interactions with this. Like, I know Christopher Sabat just made a little post
Honestly, Jared,
What?
if I was a voice actor for Funimation, I'd be keeping my mouth shut.
Well, he just made a funny post
100.
like, "Oh, I hope I get to ride a Walkman to work now." Just something
Or
funny like that.
yeah, something. Or like if you are going to post as a voice actor working for Funimation,
Right, you're not. Yeah.
like and it's not going to be as bad as for voice actors who work for multiple companies, like like for example, like Chris Patton or Lucy Christian or Monica Rial or
Greg
so on and so forth.
Ayers, Jade
Yeah.
Saxton.
Yeah, or Tia Ballard,
Yeah. Ian.
Tipton does some stuff. Yeah, well, Ian's basically not working for Funny that much anymore. Anyway, he's basically LA.
He's still doing a decent amount there.
He's doing a lot of on-camera stuff though now too. But the ones that should be the ones that should like keep their mouths shut, or at most be like on Twitter and be like, really happy that we got picked up by Sony. Can't wait to work for them. Yay! Right? Like that type of comment, but on the inside they're going, "Oh my god!" Right? Like basically smile, but with terror.
Right. It's definitely going to be an interesting transition. Definitely.
Especially
can't wait to
considering
see
this
what
came out of
happens
left
with this.
field.
Oh yeah.
'cause,
Well, kind
like,
of. I mean, back in May, like we had touched on before,
They looked at it,
were
yeah.
hints of this, but you hadn't heard anything about it after that.
Nobody knew about this.
Right.
It's a bad day.
Anyways, I think that's all I've got for this. I don't know if anybody had anything else they wanted to add in before we call this an evening.
Going through like some forum posts, like there's like some person like Astro Nerd Boy on Anime News Network mentioning about the whole thing with divisions and that type of thing, and I think we got like something wrong where like Animax and we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's actually a different part of a Sony division, so it's not really under like Sony Pictures. So
Okay.
yeah, so
what-
just to give the shout out that we may be wrong on a few things and that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's
And also
possible.
him mentioning that subdivisions under a big corporation, they can't really like give their stuff away to each other. There still has to be like payment involved between them and such. So we
Basically,
kinda,
Yeah,
like,
but the
dine
payment can literally be $1.
Yeah. But,
Like that works. Well, that's basically the same thing as like transferring a title from like a vehicle or something like that. For example, like if like say like you're getting a vehicle from your parent or something, or somebody from your family, and they're giving you the car and putting it in your name. You when they ask you how much the car is, because depending on the price of the car, you pay more for the titling. You literally just tell them $1, because I've done that. we have bought and used cars where you're like, you tell the owner, you're like, I'll give you an extra $50 to just say it's $1. That way you don't have to pay the ridiculous amount of like tax involved on the titling. But yeah, they can do that. It's legal. I mean, it's legal, but it's like
Not the most ethical.
it's
each
that
subdivision
it's
still
that
wants to
nice
make a
gray
profit,
area.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta love business sometimes, but at the same time, it scares the shit out of you.
Everybody thinks the world's black and white, but it's mostly gray.
Yeah.
I think right now most Funimation fans are living in that gray area right now.
Oh yeah. I would definitely say so.
yeah, there's people that are saying, "Oh, it's
Oh,
nothing.
man.
Just look at the FAQ that just kept sugarcoating everything or dodging the question."
Yeah,
That didn't
no,
really
there
answer
are.
anything.
I can think of a couple people that we know right now that are probably going, ah!
Oh yeah.
Come on, show me your war face.
Oh my god! Like war crying, like war crying at their computer screen, or just crying in general. Like, welcome to the gray area, folks. Hey! Now they know. Now they know what it felt to be ADV Films in 2008.
Too soon.
Ouch! Ouch! Or what was it? Jenny on in 2009, or I think, or something like that.
It was. I think it was. 2009.
Yeah.
Yikes. Oh god.
Ouch.
All right.
Oh man.
So on that depressing note,
Yes, on that depressing note, Yeah, this is definitely huge news. Funimation is sold to Sony, at least conditionally at the moment. Don't see any reason why it won't that won't finalize. In
I'm
the
pretty
next
sure
couple
that's
days.
going through.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't see any reason why it wouldn't.
Unless Marvel Studio comes out of the work and goes, "We'll give you 200 million."
What? Oh my god.
Yeah, not happening.
We want to do we want to do a Spike Spencer and Deadpool fucking clash.
Yikes.
Yes.
Oh my
One
god.
can-
And Mike Spencer will be in a goddamn
I
robot.
think a couple fanboys just creamed in their pants a little bit.
Good lord.
Uh,
Anyways, on that note, definitely check out our Attack on Titan wall scroll giveaway that we're doing. It's huge, guys. It's huge. We have almost every single main character on there. We're also going to be donating to a charity of your choice from the list that we have on there as well. Check out Blake Shepard's Project Robot Girl. The Patreon for that is still up. Still a bevy of reward tiers on there that you can choose from. I can personally say I've gotten some great content from it, so is Christian. We can both vouch for that. And definitely check us out on Twitter, and we'll be keeping you guys updated on anything else that might come from this major news announcement of Sony buying Funimation.
And
But-
don't forget to check out the Average SP's channel. Jared, make sure you put a link in the description of this
Oh
video
no,
for
I'm
him.
definitely going to. I was just getting there to thank him, and thank you for an Average Aspie joining us on the podcast. It's definitely awesome having you on here. Definitely awesome having Tower on here as well. And nice of
Thanks.
you to join us too, Mike.
Yeah, no
First
kidding.
time on the podcast, right?
Yeah, we're
Oh, you
like
can-
this will be like
I
the
have a
13th
channel.
episode, and you're finally.
I have a channel to link to.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Send me the. Give me the
I
link
will
here
send
on
you a link.
Discord. I'll put a link in
I-
there for that too.
I will send it to you. I don't. I have not been posting. I am making plans though. I'm gonna make a very very big video in the next 6 months at least. That's my plans at least. I have a big plans, I guess.
Awesome.
Viewers.
So, I don't know. I feel like that's gonna be like the only videos that I make though, because I do not post very often.
You're fine.
Anyway.
Yeah, we'll have links for that. Link for an Average Aspie's page below. Definitely check both of them out. Definitely good friends of ours. But we'll catch you next time.
Yep. See ya, everyone.
Yo.
Adios.
Bye.